Hello, friends. Welcome back to another edition of the Lovecast with Jamal podcast. You're listening to episode 170. This one's going to be called The Integrated Masculine Presence with Kiko Ellsworth. Guys, how are you? Welcome back to the show. I am your host, Jamal Javaji. It's always good to be back with you, and I hope you've been enjoying the last few weeks. Of just had some stellar guests on the show and just great content, and I'm trusting that it's really been of benefit to you and is adding value to your life. If you've benefited, if you've enjoyed the podcast last few weeks, please let me encourage you to go to iTunes or Spotify, wherever you listen to this. But if you could predominantly go to iTunes and rate and review this podcast. It's just a great way to give back. I'm always a fan. I think there's something very powerful about giving back to whatever has been of service to you, whatever's benefited you in any way, shape, or form. Just small tokens of just ways to give back. This is totally free. You can just go to iTunes, just rate and review, and also subscribe to the podcast. It really helps the show get visibility and get into the hands of more people. And I am biased, but I am convinced that the content we're putting out here is really important, and there's a lot of people who are ready for this and hungry for this content. I'm excited today to introduce, just to give you a little background about my guest who's coming on the show. I had the opportunity to sit down with a fabulous human being by the name of Kiko Ellsworth. Now, most of you have probably seen him. If you don't know the name Kiko Ellsworth, Kiko is an Emmy Award winning actor. He's been in just so many films, actually, probably too many to list here. He's been literally in hundreds of TV shows, films, commercials, radio programs. He's been in movies like Lucifer, Bad Boys 2, Criminal Minds. He's been a mainstay on soap operas like General Hospital, Port Charles. Back in the day, he played one of the leading characters there, actually named Jamal on Port Charles. He's been around for a while and has done some great movies. Actually has a movie coming out in 2023 starring folks like Eric Roberts, Danny Trejo, Shannon Elizabeth, Frank Whaley, and more. So he's done such great work, but really more importantly, the reason I wanted to talk with Kiko Ellsworth. He also goes by Issei. That's kind of his spiritual name that he's adopted, that he goes by. But Kiko, or Issei, has really discovered really what it means to be an integrated masculine healing presence in the world, and he's really passionate about that subject and has done a lot of inner work and has been through a lot of healing. He stepped away from his Hollywood career. Even though it was successful, even though he won an Emmy, has done a lot of great things, he stepped away to really pursue what matters, which is the inner life, spiritual life. And he then eventually returned to Hollywood, but he will put this he says this in the interview, that's not actually his real work. His real work is as a healer. And we just had a great conversation, and we touch on a lot of things I think a lot of you will be interested in, specifically about integrating the masculine and feminine within us, and specifically how that is liberating to men. And I think you'll be interested in this conversation. So there's definitely something in it for you. I just enjoy talking to people like Kiko just because of who he is and what he's been through, and also what he has to offer the world. So let me invite you to really lean into this conversation, listen to his story, allow yourself to get to know him through this conversation, and ask yourself what is it in this conversation that you need to hear, and just be very open and listen very closely to what he has to say. And I know that you'll get a lot out of this conversation. So don't forget to rate and review us, But without further ado, let me introduce my conversation with Kiko. Hello, friends. Welcome back to another edition of the Lovecast with Jamal podcast. I'm just super excited. You guys are in for a treat today. We have a fantastic, divine human being sitting across the proverbial podcasting table for me. You as I mentioned in the intro, you might have heard of him as the actor Kiko Ellsworth, but he goes by Issei. So Issei, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's glad to be here and be in the conversation of going inward. I love that you hold that space. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of it.
Oh, of course. Well, I've been really looking forward to this conversation with you for quite some time, actually. And I find it, I just feel blessed that our paths connected and we're able to have this conversation here. But I'm always intrigued to, first of all, someone who's in the arts industry or somebody who's making films and telling stories. I mean, we as humans are storytellers by nature. We've been telling stories since the beginning of human history. And obviously today, the way we do that predominantly is through film. And usually the storytellers are the ones that are taking a transcendent message, no matter what it is, and moving humanity forward. It's always been the storytellers that unite us and move us in a direction. So I find that fascinating that you're in that industry and have been in that industry. But I guess a question would be, how did you get into this? Like growing up, obviously we're both here in California. Where did you grow up? How did this even develop for you? Give us a snapshot.
The contrary, actually. By the time I got into high school, I was making fun of the drama actors and thinking it was the silliest thing in the world. And but yeah, I grew up in Southern Cali, and I grew up what some people would call shy and didn't really have much of a voice, and people pleaser and scared and just fearful and very insecure, walking on eggshells type of personality growing up. I didn't start that way, but then the world happened and then I started being that way. But then smash cut to the acting, I ended up having stage fright. And it was like I was being choked out on the stage. It was a Thursday night. It was a showcase. So all the producers were there and directors and the actors and actresses. Everyone was dressed up and they had their headshots, and only the best ones come to the showcase. Other ones have to perform better. And I was there freaking out on stage, and I was trying to say the lines to this actress who was in the scene with me, and I was choking my lines out, and my breath was, very breathy, and I could barely get the lines out. And my teacher, she finally stopped the scene. She was like, "Cut, cut, cut! Like, what are you doing?" It's like, she said, "Just say the lines. Just talk. Why are you talking all breathy?" And I'm thinking like, yeah, I'm trying my best to say these lines, but my throat is clamping up on me. And so I ended up finishing the scene, and, everyone clapped, and I gave the fake smile. I knew it was full of crap, and I just did horrible. And I got off the stage and I shook it off, and I cursed at myself. And I remember saying and thinking to myself after the curse part, that wasn't me. That wasn't the truth. I had a big problem with me not being truthful because people were watching. And so that's when I really got into acting. And I was like, okay, it's on. I put it on my gloves. I started training, and I was like going to classes 3 times a week, and I stuck it out. And that's how I really got into it.
Now, were you out of school at this point, out of high school when you were going through that audition?
When this happened, I was about, I want to say about 27. I was 27. I didn't start until my mid 20s with acting.
And that's when you knew, okay, because it felt like you were hitting a ceiling that you weren't able to move into your truth.
Well, yeah, because it had nothing to do with the acting. I didn't care about the shows or being a star or nothing like that. That meant nothing to me. It was fun learning how to express myself. But then when I saw my block, I was like, oh, no. I got to fix that. Like I ran face to face with a block within me that I had never experienced before, and had a big problem with that. I mean, anybody will tell you, acting and things like that, like acting, performing arts is like some of the best therapy there is, because you have to look at yourself. You really have to look at yourself. And when you get to really doing it, you really start to see yourself. It's all about personal development work. That's, I mean, when you really get underneath it, people think that actors, oh yeah, they get up there and you're just liars. You're lying the entire time. And it's actually the exact opposite. You know, yes, we imagine ourselves in a imaginary, you know, situation, but what's happening within us is real. You know, the best acting is, some acting is fake and it is lying. I won't, you know, there is, but then there's some good or best acting. There's all real emotions happening. It's being able to, you know, make that imaginary situation real within you. So the human watching the screen can actually connect with the human on the screen. And if it's a lie, you're not going to connect. If it's the truth, your tears, you're going to cry, you're going to connect. You know,
interesting, because that's energy. It's true energy. It's what and people can pick up on that, even though if they're not consciously thinking about it, because nobody would know at home or in a theater whether or not that person is tapping into the truth, but you can feel it as someone who's.
I know because I love to cry. Like I love to cry. Like, so I know every single time when somebody on the screen crying, even if I teach this, because I don't feel it. Like, but when when it's real, I can't even stop it, even if it's just a little bit, you know, because sometimes they tap in just a little bit, which is totally fine. Sometimes it's happening a lot, but I get pulled in like right away because I just love that truth just comes through. I allow it in.
That's fascinating. Yeah, fascinating. Yeah. So good. Well, let me ask you this. What was your block? What did you discover is your block when you were, you know, going through that audition and you hit that ceiling or that block in you? What was that?
That first main block was not being able to be myself, not being able to be me. And that's my whole thing with coaching men right now. It's like my whole phrase is, once you have you have everything. And at that point, I didn't have me. I didn't have control of me. I didn't have access to me. Everything that was showing up was a complete and utter lie. And that really messed me up.
Okay. Wow. That's profound. So what you're saying is up until that point, you were 27, right? So largely what you were living out, your construct, your character, all these different things were just, I mean, I don't think you knew it was a lie, but you realized at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it was different stages of uncovering this, and, you know, we're like an onion, right? The entire time. But, you know, I know, like, my whole journey through my life, you've heard the saying, you know, forget so you can remember, right? So I totally designed my life, I know, to like forget who I was, to pretend like I'm shy, to pretend like I'm this liar, this taker. So then we can have an actual journey, just like a character journey in storytelling.
Sure.
There's the Heru, they get the word hero from the word Heru, right? The ancient African Egyptian god Heru. And that's the character that actually has to fight to bring in his higher self, basically, to remember, you know, put his members back together. Heru or hero, and then hero's journey is that character that has to do the work to put himself back together, right? So it's all about that journey. So I knew that I went on that journey to forget myself so I could have my own Heru's journey and putting myself back together so I could be here with you.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So what most people would have walked away and go, okay, this isn't for me. I'm not good at this. This isn't what, you know, they would have just kind of shied away. For you, there was something that said, no, we're going to go into this because it felt painful probably at that point.
It was bad.
What was like, I guess my question is, how did you move beyond the lie? How did you even know it was a lie? How did you start seeing it? And what was the trajectory like for you moving into the truth of who you are? I mean, I would imagine it was a process, not an overnight thing.
Totally. I mean,
what was that? What was that process like?
I mean, I'm still in that process. I still find lies in my life to this day, you know, but the process is, I'm glad you asked that. The process is gross to subtle.
Say more about that. Gross to subtle.
Yeah. So very, very, prominent or obvious to very, very subtle, right? So you have the gross and big lies, like how I noticed on that stage where I literally couldn't be myself and I was choking and this, that, and the other. And I was clamping up and sweating and my chest, all that stuff, right? That was like a very obvious lie. So like today, a subtle lie is, say, for example, it might be as subtle as I might be talking to somebody and my thought might wander and have a concern about something that is irrelevant to this conversation, right? And it has me to behave in a way that is not aligned with what I'm really in that moment aligned to. So that misalignment, although it may be very, very subtle, and I don't beat myself up about it. I'm like, oh, okay. It's just something to remind myself, this better focus, stay here, stay in the present, breathe, stay. And then you just learn better and better to be in their own groove of you, because literally once you have you have everything. You have everything. There's nothing else. There's literally nothing in this world that I need except for me. Once I have me, like the energy of me, from that place, you can create and do what you need to do.
So good. That's such a powerful concept, and what I'm hearing you say is, in the beginning, there's massive misalignment, right? You're massively misaligned. So it's this huge thing that shows up and it's it froze you, and even in your body, you really couldn't speak, that kind of thing. But as you start to first of all, get present with that. Okay, what is that? Start to figure out the roots of that, start to clear that.
Yeah.
Then it goes from, instead of these massive misalignments, to they're more subtle, but throughout,
Absolutely.
but they're like little hooks, right? And they just show you, need a little adjustment
That's
coming back.
exactly it. And it's just that whole, and then along with that process, you're just doing the work. You're just doing the work and you're just diving in, and you're minimizing more and more the guilt, more and more the shame, minimizing more and more of the beating yourself up, because those things detract from the learnings and the lessons and the teachings. So we're learning to minimize those things and catch it quicker and catch it quicker and catch it quicker. And then we get into the groove of you.
So good. That's fantastic. Yeah. I always, I have in my coaching work, one of the things that we always start when I'm working with somebody is we start with getting into alignment. And I have this whole workshop, I call it the sustainable alignment. But the idea is that, if you're driving a car, if you get into a car, I'm sure you've driven a car that was massively out of alignment, it's like you can't even drive the thing. It's like pulling you left, right. You're constantly, it's dangerous even.
Yeah.
So then you take it in. It's, there's some really key. You have to give a lot of attention up front. They have to put it on a rack. They get it on this machine. They start to align it. And then you get in the car and you drive it and you notice, like, I can take it where I want it to go. Like I want to go here. It goes here. I want to go here. It goes here. But over time, or let's say it wasn't completely, it may seem like it's an alignment, but because it's a process, you'll notice it pulls a little bit to the left, it pulls a little bit to the right, maybe a familiar pull, and you go, okay. So that's what I'm hearing you say. That's fascinating. So good.
Absolutely.
Okay. So give us, just for the listeners, give us a time frame here. Okay. So you're about 27. You're confronted with the lie, what I call the psychological structure, right? The concept of what it means to be me, which is not the truth often. It's because it's conditioned by outside forces.
Yeah.
So you're confronted with that at 27.
Yeah.
What was at what point did you feel like your acting career reflected or began to reflect the truth of who you are?
Correction. That was about 25.
25. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it began to reflect the truth around, I was 24, 25. So then about a couple of years later, around 26 going into 27, that's when I really started to have like that sort of confidence in me. And I just started booking things, and I booked my first, major film. And then right at 27 is when I got on Port Charles, where I played the character of Jamal. Right. So at that, even when I was auditioning on the show, like gotten to where I was, but that was, I remember auditioning for Port Charles. It was 4 times, and it was like a few hundred people auditioning for that. But throughout the entire process, I was still nervous and scared, even though I was, doing doing my work. But that's when I really started to get like tangible results. And when I was like 26, 27, and then when I was in the show, that really built my chops and confidence on an external level, on a more material, like skill level, but not a spiritual level. I wasn't building that at that time.
Okay. But so the spiritual came first, right? The spiritual alignment came first. And was that through?
What do you mean? No, I didn't get the spiritual alignment until in my 40s.
Wow. Okay. So this was just strictly perfecting your craft of acting.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
Okay.
20s were bad. 30s were not as bad, but still, lost. Yeah.
Okay. But
40s, I started to get some real wherewithal with myself.
So what I'm hearing you say, you hit the block at 25, you go to work, you say, okay, there's a limitation. I'm not okay with that. You start to craft your profession as far as acting goes. You get that down, you land a big role, Port Charles, playing the character Jamal. That was a hit. That led you, open doors, I would imagine, to lots of other films and projects.
I forgot the big ego that happened right up in there. Yeah.
Okay. So then you got to a point though, you get married, you guys move out here to the West Coast, or at least to the Central, or was it the Central Coast? Or
well, I was in Los Angeles I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, right? And then I was out. We didn't move from Los Angeles until 2019, before all this stuff happened in the world, right?
Gotcha.
So yeah, I was always an LA native. She came to Los Angeles in 2000.
Okay. So at some point though, after several years of being in the film industry, you hit another block, right? It was like you just lost a sense of desire.
I remember the block. I remember the problem I had, how it first started showing up. Mm-hmm. I couldn't memorize my lines.
Interesting. So that happened. That came around a second time.
That came around. No, I couldn't memorize my lines.
You couldn't memorize. Okay.
I couldn't, not that I couldn't say them. They wouldn't stick. I'm like, I can't remember this scene. I can't. It was like I didn't want to do it deep down. And I realized, I thought at first, I was like, what's going on with me? Is my memory going bad? What's going on? I was, what is it? And then, sometime later, probably 2 or 3 years later, in hindsight, I look back, I was like, oh, because I had more alignment at that point, spiritually. I realized I was like, oh, I couldn't memorize my lines because my spirit, I didn't want to do that anymore. My spirit was already making a transition into this next era of my life, and releasing everything about this actor identity was a part of it. So I didn't have the drive to even want to do it anymore. And a part of that was like just lines. My brain was like, I don't even these lines. I'm like, we're not doing this anymore. So then I started making that transition, but that's how it first started showing up, is that it was a struggle to memorize my lines.
Amazing. That is amazing. So you got to a point where what I'm hearing you say is you just didn't want to do it. You didn't want to be in the acting world anymore. Your spirit was calling you upward. There was another chapter here. You had so identified though, up until that point, with being an actor. That was your new identity.
Absolutely.
After 25, it became your identity. So, but that's not the truth either.
Exactly. I'm glad you actually brought up that key word, because before I became an actor, I was something else. I identified as something else. I grew up in the hood. I grew up, somewhat in the streets or with street characters, you know what I'm saying? That sort of thing. And so I identified as this sort of street kid, this hustler, that sort of mentality. But then then I acted and behaved in that way. And I thought in that way. Sure. Because that was the identity how I thought of myself, right?
It was a role, it was a script, right?
It was a role. Exactly. It wasn't me. And then I got fired from my job. But right when I got fired from my job, I was already acting. And then I got an acting job and I was like, oh, I'm an actor now. actors don't do what I was doing before. Actors rehearse. Actors go to acting classes. Acting gets, they get jobs and they get commercials and they get residual checks. I'm that now. Right. And then I released that, and I was like, oh, I'm not that either. I'm not feeling that no more. Something's out of alignment here. I'm good.
Yes.
Soul's going this way. Body still want to do this way. It's like,
wow. That had to feel really unnerving, obviously, to let go of your entire identity up until that point was acting. So you're letting go of that. What was that like in your life? I mean, did people around you think you were going crazy? I mean, what was the response of the folks?
I just remember, pretty much I just leaned on my wife, and she's always been very spiritually like aligned, basically. She's always had that alignment spiritually within herself and with God. And, I remember sitting on the brown carpet of my little office in our home, and I was crying, and I was just crying. And I was telling her, I was like, I have no idea who I am. And she was sitting on the floor with me. And I was like, I have no idea how to make any money. And I had taken a break from acting, and she had said, well, you could go back to acting. And I was like, oh, wait, yeah, I do know how to act. I had already been on the show. I had already done major films, but I was so searching for something else that I had totally forgotten that I actually could make money acting. And, so yeah, it was just, I just remember, people, I speculate, but some people were mad at me. Some of our friends were mad at me. I lost some friends, or so-called friends, because my wife at the time she was holding such a sacred womb space for me to lose myself and to find myself. And unconsciousness, when you're on that journey, when you're unconscious, can be hurtful, and you're doing things that are not really true to you. And I know that some of my friends weren't approving of that. And I get it. I wasn't approving of it either. I was lost, and I was trying to find myself. And, so I know that I was getting a lot of that, but like none of them really ever told me. They were like always telling her. So it was like, oh, don't tell Issei, don't tell Kiko at the time. Like, don't tell him the truth. And that was, I never got that from them, but I heard that, and I know, that's what was going on. And I don't resent my friends, and we're all on our journey, and that's a part of their journey, and we're all going to complete this, and we're all going to be able to look back when we go back home and look back. And I think many of us are going to apologize to each other. It's like, yeah, I'm sorry about judging you your entire life, and that was all about me. I'm like, yeah, I know. So I'm trying to get that perspective as much as I can here and now.
Totally. Okay. Fascinating. So you had this awakening point where you go, you know what? Because there was a struggle after you walked away from acting because it wasn't aligned with you. There was a period of sometimes people call it the wilderness, right? Where it feels like you're aimless, but a lot of things are happening in the wilderness. Obviously you're getting, a lot of things are just developing, but at some point being in the space, you realize, okay, there's a financial need, there's income requirements. And she reminds you at some level of who you are, actually, that you have this power within you, that you can act, basically. So that was the call for you to go back into acting. Is that when you picked it back up again?
No, not at all. That was my lowest point. And, I started really, really searching. And I remember going to Facebook, of all places. I was like, I got to find some sort of group. I got to find something, some sort of support, which is key, to not do things like this alone. Find some sort of group, mentor, role model to help navigate through these eras that we go through within ourselves. But what I ended up finding instead was a book, and it was called The Book of Life: Ascension in the Divine World Order by Michael Sharp. And I said, oh, this is not a group, but my life is pretty messed up right now, and this is the Book of Life. How can I not buy it? You must be telling me something, right? grabbed the book, and then we had a trip planned to Hawaii. Took it with me to Hawaii, and read it cover to cover, nonstop, like 2.5 days. Soul was salivating. It talked about everything from aliens that were planet hopping to the Kundalini, to the ascension, to the government, to chakras. It put together, connected all these dots, all these things that I knew, had heard of, and I knew were connected in some way. It connected it. I closed that book and I said, okay. And at the time I was like lifting weights. I'm like, all right, no more lifting weights, because that's not the type of strong that I need to be. That's not going to help me. I need to be strong on the inside, right? Go within. That was my point of going within at that point. That was the turning point. When you go within, it fixes everything. You have a chance, at least, right? If you do the work. And so that's when I started going within. And I said, you know what, that book, I said, yoga. I'm not going to do weights. I'm going to do yoga. I think that will help me to go within, right? And then I did a little research, and I found Kundalini yoga. And I said, oh, that book mentioned about the Kundalini. I was like, I'm doing Kundalini yoga because I want to raise my Kundalini. Like, I want to get it tingling. And I found a 4 a.m. Kundalini yoga class when we got back right next to where I lived. And I met my soul sister, Alice, with her dog, Chloe. We were doing yoga at 4 a.m. And that's when I really started building the inner infrastructure of me. I started getting in touch with me through the practice of Kundalini yoga, meditation, breathwork, pranayama, all that stuff.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. Stunning. And that's intense. Interesting that yoga, my understanding of yoga is that it means inner union, right? So it means to yoke or to become connected with that internal essence, which is the truth. It's amazing that we all possess this power. We all possess this kunda, essence. Yeah. Yes, the power that from the pit, but it comes up. It's there. Everybody has it. It's amazing. But until we experience something, most people, and a lot of people, they think, oh, this is Eastern. This is some new age, mumbo jumbo or whatever. And it's like, and I used to be in the same place, believe the same things until you experience something, though. When you experience something for yourself, you realize, oh, I didn't think it existed because I hadn't experienced it. But I always like to tell people, hey, not everything that exists is then things that you've experienced. There's a lot of things that exist that you have not experienced. That's okay. It means there's room for discovery. But everyone possesses Kundalini, this power.
And in fact, it's so funny because to comment on what you said about this like new age spiritual stuff. Mm-hmm. In fact, it's actually been so in our faces that we haven't even seen it. The Kundalini is the symbol on pretty much all ambulances.
Oh yeah, it's the medical symbol.
We've all seen that.
Oh yeah,
that's the symbol of like basically enlightenment, perfect health. When your Kundalini rises, everything gets aligned. Yeah. Everything opens up, your own enlightenment. And that's the symbol on the side of pretty much every single ambulance out there is that snake with that rod, or those two snakes with that rod going up, which is our spine, the Ida, the Pingala, and those Kundalini, that serpent energy going up, penetrating the chakras and coming out the crown.
Beautiful. And you touched on Ida and Pingala a little bit, masculine and feminine energies. So I'm fascinated by this, obviously, because we all have, but we have both. To be human is to have Ida or Pingala or masculine and feminine energies. Yeah. But the key is to be unified, right? The key is that they would come together. Mm-hmm. And what I find to be fascinating is so you have a passion for men, for helping men, working with men. What do you feel like? Okay, this is just my perception. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. My perception is that most men struggle when it comes to this inner union of the feminine. So as we talk about masculinity or divine masculine, it's interesting that the reason men are struggling is not because of the masculine so much so as there's some pain or trauma in the masculine that prevents us from unifying with the feminine. Can you speak to that or say something?
Oh yeah. You're going to like this one a lot, Jamal. Well, firstly, my work for the better part of like the last pretty much almost 20 years has been with the feminine.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
I was vice president of a domestic violence nonprofit. I was the self-defense and empowerment coordinator. I've taught so many workshops, rape prevention seminars, empowerment seminars, teaching women, girls, children how to actually have their voice, how to take up space, energetic space. At that time, from let's just say from 2003 until 2017, 2018, it was strictly all feminine.
Wow.
We're all females. I'd never worked with a guy before. In fact, somebody, I remember my friend who was the person that asked me, this guy Kai, who does plant medicine, he had asked me at one of the ceremonies, he said, Kiko, can you train me? I was like, what do you mean train you? Like, what are you talking about? Train you? He was like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I had no idea what he was talking. I was like, train you? Like, I don't do that really. I'm like, we could do martial arts like that. But he was asking me to really hold that space, like as the divine masculine. But I hadn't really completed my training with the feminine just yet, which was preparing me on where I was going to be taking the guys when I started working with them within themselves to get aligned with. I had to really get in touch, in alignment, in cahoots, in collaboration with that divine feminine to understand it, to understand it within me first before I could even approach a man, because that's where I'm taking them. That's where we're taking them, is that inner union with that feminine within them. And that's the only reason why that I've got to experience that a man will struggle, is because we've had an idea that to be a man is to be everything opposite of the feminine, which means that I can't have anything feminine to do with this. That's what a man is, which is totally opposite. It's about having that union within you. We all have the yin yang within us. Women have the masculine and feminine within them. We have masculine and feminine within us. So there becomes a big problem, like huge, particularly for men and certain types of men, because if we don't accept that there is yin energy within us, the receiving energy, right? The receiving energy, the recessive energy, the feminine. If we don't accept that within ourselves,
right,
then we're actually rejecting the feminine. Yet we're trying to be with a female, which is the embodiment of a feminine. So we're rejecting her energetically within ourselves, and yet we're trying to be with her at the same time. That will never work.
Oh, totally. That's really
ever.
That's really good.
When we get, let me just finish that. When we get to actually process that I have a gas pedal, which is masculine, and a brake, let's just say feminine, within me, and to be able to navigate within me in the world, I got to use both, just like a car. When we just get that concept, it's not that I'm a woman or I'm soft or I'm this, forward and backwards, and I like to navigate this way. When we understand that that's the dynamic of being balanced masculine, that feminine, then we'll start to, really embody, integrate that feminine. And then we can actually be in perfect harmony with that divine feminine outside of us.
So good. That's so good. Yeah. And that's what I was going to say, is that the external world can only mirror. So like in relationship, right? With union or commitment or whatever it may be with in a relationship with, say, with a man and a woman, if that union doesn't exist within you, it can't exist externally. And I think a lot of times people are trying to get there, right? They're trying to get to that union through the external relationship. And it just, you can't, it doesn't work that way.
I'm gonna skip doing the work right here, but let me just get with you. let me get with you, baby, because you look cute and look good, but I'm not going to do it over here. But let's just make it happen out here. Eventually, it's going to blow up.
Totally. And I love what you said about the feminine, the, yin, or was it Pingala? I can't remember which one of it's either or Pingala, I think it's, but it's the feminine exists. So men, what men typically aren't aware of or tend to have resistance to is the feminine within them, which is the receptive nature within them. So most men have a real hard time receiving, which is the feminine essence. But what makes the masculine come alive is the ability to give, the masculine energy. So it's like, if we're not open to receiving, then the masculine in me can't come into its maturity. And that was a story of my life for years. I felt stunted. I felt like a little boy in many ways, but it was simply because I wasn't able to receive. And it took me, I kind of was on a similar journey of being drawn into the feminine, the divine feminine, the inner feminine. And I didn't understand why that was. But it was so that I can be a man in so many ways, in function in this life here. So that's fascinating. There's so much more we could say about that, but I find that to be.
Oh yeah. We could do a show on just that by itself, just that.
Oh, totally. Totally. So, but the idea is when you have this inner union, you have yourself. That's the true self. Absolutely. Masculine, feminine union.
Absolutely. Just like you, I never felt like a man my entire life. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like a provider. I didn't feel like a sufficient lover. I didn't like none of it. And it all had to do with the balancing or the imbalance of the energy within me, and never being really taught or seeing balanced role models that I could really model myself after. I didn't see balanced men that were sensitive and equally strong, that could, speak, hey, you hurt my feelings, and please don't ever do that again. You know what I'm saying? Like speaking sensitivity with strength and power, that balance with yin and yang. It was always aggressive and this sort of thing. And don't cry because you're being a little bee. It was always that dynamic. So then it's never this, and it puts us into a struggle, but like when they come together, like, I'm sure you work with men, I work with men as well. And I love working with men because it's so gratifying. But when that man, I'm going to say something very bold, and I can speak to it for myself too, with my wife. I'll start about my wife. My wife and I, we were married for 7 years, from 2008 to 2015. Right? And we have a child, and she was born, and we did a lot of practicing for the child as well. You know how it goes. And I say that to say, she's never been with me. She's never been with me.
You're talking about your wife?
I'm talking about my wife.
She's never
been with me. She was with the shell of me. She was with this misaligned version of me. She was with the insecure me. She was with I was never whole. It was always fractured. I was always in pieces. I was never integrated, complete. She's never been with, I didn't even have access to my heart when I was with her. I would give her squeeze and drops of love. Because I hadn't healed that part within me, because I hadn't also healed my relation with my dad. There was so much stuff I didn't heal that I have since done all that work to this point, and I continue to do that work. What else are you going to do, right? But she's never been with me romantically. She's never been with me intimately. She's never been with me sexually. She was with a shell of me. So, like, and with regard,
basically an actor, right?
You had to throw that in there. I'll say yes. She was with well,
let me say this. Because we're all acting, but the actor with the role you were playing was so out of alignment. What I'm hearing you say is, was so out of alignment with the essence. So the truth of you wasn't coming through that role, if we want to say that.
So with men, I share that with you because I'm the microcosm, right? The micro. So if we go macro, and I say this boldly, and this is why I say, you know, from my observation and experience, women and men, but women have never even seen a divine masculine in this world. We're so identified with that unhealthy, toxic, patriarchal, unbalanced, fearful, violent, male, short temper, money hungry, manipulative, you know, used car salesman, whatever, all that stuff, you know, rapists. How many women get raped? Yep. We're used to that man.
Wow.
The divine masculine, in a sense, has been eradicated from the mind of like most all females, at least in the Western world, the United States, let's just say.
Right. They don't know that man exists.
You could be right here, done all the work. And then what in her mind, you still don't exist. What she sees is still, she's reacting and getting fearful because she's just like Pavlov's law, right? That the dog, she hears fear. She feels fear. Her heart's beating. She's like, no, he wants to get something from me. She doesn't see you. She sees this other thing that she's still relating to.
Thank you. That's so good. Can you give us a picture, a little snapshot? Someone says, okay, well, what is it? Give us a picture. What is a divine man? What does that look like?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for that. It gave me chills just you asking that question, actually. So if anyone's listening, or a man or a woman, especially a woman, imagine, take a few deep breaths and relax the face, relax the shoulders, relax the body, the organs, let everything drop, and just breathe into the lower cavities of the diaphragm and the belly, 360, nice and slow. And imagine a man that you feel safe, okay? There's more to it, but you feel safe. But in order for you to feel safe, you know that you trust him. But wait a minute. I can't just trust him, right? But you trust this man on multiple levels because how we relate to one another is a multi-dimensional thing. It's not just physical. It's not just mental. It's multiple things, right? So in what areas do you trust him? Well, first, you trust him spiritually. He's connected. He's getting guidance. He's getting guidance from the divine, from spirit, from source. He knows that, oh, maybe I don't know this. Maybe I need to ask for guidance. He's doing his work. He's listening. He's doing his best to be connected to spirit, right? So he's got that connection. That's that first level of trust. If a woman knows that a man is connected in that way with spirit, she can trust him at the highest level. If she knows that he's not connected, and I put out there that all women know, whether consciously or unconsciously, if a man is connected spiritually or not, they know. If they know he's not connected, they know that they can only trust him so far because his guidance is going to eventually falter because it's not connected to higher plane. And so she knows I can't trust him fully. I can't trust his guidance. That means I can't fully be safe. I can't fully give myself to him. That's the first. Then trusting him at a mental level, that he's seeing himself and thinking about himself properly, that he basically knows how to love himself, right? That's easier said than done, obviously, but is he loving himself? Or is he thinking and tearing himself apart? Is he self-mutilating? Is he thinking that he is a piece of SHIT? Does he still have those thoughts, unhealed thoughts from traumas that we've all had since we were a child? Has he remedied those? If he hasn't, she's not going to be safe in how he thinks about her because he's already self-destructive. So he's got to be healthy here in his mind and disciplined in his mind. If he's got those two in order, the rest is going to be pretty easy. Then he's going to be mostly emotionally safe. If he can be disciplined with his thinking, then his emotions, he's not going to actually destroy her or have these outbursts and these and hurt her emotionally. He's not hurting himself because he's got a disciplined mind, right? It's starting to be really, really aligned, and his emotions are going to be disciplined. And from there, if the spirit and mind, if those things are aligned, if she's feeling safe, right, and trusts him on those levels, then the physical just automatically falls into place.
Okay, that's so good. So what I heard you say, a divine man, divine masculine is a man who's done the work, is doing the work, it's connected internally. That the masculine and feminine are have come together or coming together internally. So he's deeply rooted in his intuitive spiritual nature, and therefore he's being guided. And there's wisdom there, so she can perceive that. But that a divine man is somebody who's internally rooted, internally unified, and is doing the work. Secondly, a divine man is somebody who has learned to take the domain of his mind under his control. And he's also applying that towards self-care, self-love. He is actually applying, he's loving himself well, physically doing the tangible work of that, whether that's eating well, drinking well, yoga, whatever that may be, all of those things, processing his traumas from the past, all of those things, doing the inner work. And then the third part is then the physical aspect of it. Then there's the divine man is emotionally or intimately safe for the woman. Yep. Okay. That's beautiful. Yep. So
now bringing that full circle, right? When was the last time a woman has engaged with a man like that? Because here's what naturally happens. When that man really shows up, it's the best thing for a woman because she can relax.
Yeah. She can relax.
She can relax and be herself.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
So many women are like forced to do the man's duties and to be the yang energy and to like penetrate. Right. And so many men it's just, but she can relax.
Totally. And
I know when I've been around a woman who's embodied the divine feminine.
Yes.
I automatically get snapped. I'm like, oh, I automatically want to serve. I automatically want to do these things. It's just automatic. I automatically get activated energetically. I'm like, whoa. It's like, whoa. She's in her. Ooh, it just happens.
Totally. And what's interesting is that I have in my past, when I was not doing the work, the inner work of connecting the masculine and the feminine internally for me, I attracted women who were also out of balance, who were not connected, had not come to this union internally for themselves. So they were shut down either in their feminine. I've actually been with women that their feminine was shut down completely. So they were operating in their masculine role, but it was out of balance. So there wasn't a connection. But what was interesting is that as I started to heal this in me and have that union happen in me, then what naturally began to happen is I began to draw or attract to myself women who had done the work and more moved into their feminine essence as well. But I do a lot of work with women who feel like if I could just meet that divine man, right? If I could just meet them, I would be fine. And I always like to say, hey, look, yeah, you would be able to relax, but that work has to start now within you, because how will you even draw that kind of a man into your?
That's true.
I mean,
that's what you said is there's a whole tidal wave behind that, because, and it's exactly so spot on. The woman, the female first has to create the image and the feeling and the relation flow of that divine masculine in her mind first, and then let that, and she has to start relating to that. No matter what she sees, she has to start relating to that, right?
Within her. The man you desire out there is the man within you. To put it that words, is the man within you that you begin to actually get to know.
That's so accurate. That's so accurate. Because look, we actually need, because we're doing our work. There's many of us men that are doing the work, and we need to keep doing the work. But I say this, and this is kind of like, go with me on this. We don't become real in the world until she sees us. Until she sees us. If she doesn't see us, it's like we're swimming upstream the entire time. When she sees us, everything is birthed through the divine feminine, through the mother. Everything.
Yes.
And we as well need to be birthed into the world. The woman will give us our power in the world when she acknowledges us. What's the worst thing you could do to somebody? What's the worst thing you could do to somebody besides kill him? And it was kind of the same thing. It's you do this. Oh, really, Jamal? Oh.
Not to see them. Yeah.
Don't acknowledge it. They don't exist.
Yeah.
When you acknowledge somebody and you say their name and you acknowledge their presence, right?
You give birth to them.
You give birth to them. We need, as the divine masculine, for the divine feminine to do what you said, to see us, to receive us, immaculately conceive us, immaculate conception, conceive us, right? And then to birth us through them. And then all of a sudden, I propose that us that are doing the work, it's like, oh, I now have a new superpower. I'm seeing now. Yes. Whoa. Because now it's almost like we're not seeing. They're still looking for us.
Right.
They're still looking for us.
I have a friend that he puts on the back of his business card, like his profession, and it just says, I see people. That's what I do.
I see people.
I see people. I love it because it's the idea of like, if I can see you, I give birth to you.
Yeah.
If I can see you in many ways, but I love what you're saying there. So good. So good. Well, okay. So I want to ask you this, because this is a long journey for you. You stepped out of the acting world. You're engaging in your inner work, your spiritual work. What brought you back into the acting sphere? The divine.
I wasn't looking for it. There was nothing I was looking for as an actor. Nothing that the industry has to offer me. Spirit brought it back to me because it'll serve this work. I'm doing this work for spirit. So, of course, yeah. I mean, let's just say if I'm a nobody in Hollywood, or if I become a big movie star, I don't care whichever is there for me. If I'm a big movie star, that's going to help this work. That's going to help this conversation. If it's not going to help this conversation, I don't want no part in it.
So your true work is this conversation.
Oh, and everything. God, yeah, dude. Yes, absolutely.
And everything else is
it's
a supporting role.
Yeah, it's a supporting role. Absolutely. Yeah. Plain and simple. Look, totally. when I finish this life and I return back home, it's going to be this type of work, because it's ultimately, like what you said earlier, my work is about the union of us again. And it's already done. It's already done. We just need to actually now do it. Even though it's already done. Now we get to have the journey of actually doing it, and the growth and the learnings and the teachings and the spiritual development in the doing of it, in something that actually is already destined and already completed in the divine.
So good. So good. Wow. You say this is so rich, extremely rich. Appreciate your time. If we could wrap up with this, what is one thing, people have listened to this conversation. They've heard a little bit about your story, your journey. If you could just say one thing where someone says, okay, but what about me? What do I do? Where do I start with this journey? What's the first thing you would tell people to do?
Well, it's exactly what you stand for in your work, which is also what I stand for in my work. So let me see if I'll just blend them together, yours and mine, which is, once you start going within, you'll have you. And once you have you have everything.
I love it. That's literally,
Did I put it together?
That's everything right there.
That's everything.
If once you have you, but everything is in the most unlikely place according to our training, according to our indoctrination, which is it's not out there, it's within. And it's and just agreeing to that. Okay, it's within. The pivot is within. Okay, if I agree to that, now that's a journey, that's a process, right? It's a work in that sense. But if you don't know where to look, you can work really hard and you'll never find it if you're looking out here.
And I'll have to say this one little disclaimer that goes along with that, just to assist. It's like a daily practice of going within.
Yes.
It has to be a small daily practice of going within. Best first thing to start when you get up out of bed, or even before you get out of bed. That's when you want to start practicing every single day, going within, so you can hear you. You can hear your own guidance, and you make that connection. A little practice, and just make that muscle strong little by little. Make sure you enjoy it little by little. That's how you start
100%.
going within, and then you'll start to guide. It'll start to grow from there.
Beautiful. So well said. Absolutely. Yeah, because this is not an intellectual exercise. This is a practice.
Oh no,
it's a practice, an experiential practice.
Absolutely.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Issa. Thank you for your time. Where can people get in contact with you, find out more about your work? Do you have a site?
Yeah, you know what? I'm mostly on Instagram right now, and it's my handle is A Divine Man. That's Instagram, and I post daily inspirational videos on there that are fun, that are just A Divine Man
on Instagram. Perfect.
Yep. And then from there, you can check out my coaching and all the stuff that I have available, and breathwork practices and things like that, or just say, hey, what's up?
Fantastic. A Divine Man on Instagram. People should go there, get it connected to what you're doing. And thank you for making the films you've made and are making. Yeah. Thank you for the work you're doing with healing men and healing people. And I just, I'm fortunate and blessed to have cross paths with you. Thank you.
Same here, brother. I'm glad and honored to be on this path with you. It's the collective. It's not me. It's not you. It's not them. It's all of us that are standing, that are being able to hold this space so that we can actually have a fertile, growing ground for this new world to be birthed. So I love you. Wish you peace, protection, prosperity to you and your family tribe. And I'm sure we'll be talking soon, brother.
Absolutely. Love you too. Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Take care.